All right, like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. It's Netflix time. This movie's called Little Big Women. A family grapples with the passing of their estranged father and the remnants of the life he led during his absence. So it's a Taiwan Chinese movie that came out last year, 2020. It's about 2 hours and 3 minutes long. Spoiler alert, let's get right to it. Here we have this lady named Lynn. She's purchasing fish from the meat market. At first, I thought she owned a little piece of the establishment, but that was before I realized they valued her as a high-paying customer, and they even gave us a free lobster. She comes back home to cook it up, and one of her daughters is like, "Lobster for breakfast? That's how we getting down?" Like, all right, cool. Now, bear with me because I might not remember all the names of the characters in this movie. So. She talks to her daughter about taking over the company one day because, she's working at her old restaurant. So that's why they established her as a loyal customer. All right, I get it now. Then afterwards, Mom wakes at the train station to pick up her younger niece. Here we have Lynn's other daughter. She teaches dance classes, but on her smoke break, she's feeling under her chest. The way she's feeling is like she's looking for a lump. And Lynn has another daughter that's a doctor. I think she gets a call from her mom. Yeah, I think the call was to let her know that her niece is back in town. They chilling in the car singing karaoke. Meanwhile, the sister that takes dance classes was filling out divorce papers and mailing them. To who? We don't know yet. The younger sis goes back to work and I guess she's frustrated about the menu plans. Something about them serving less eel and more salmon. But I think she was just frustrated because she was trying to get a meal prepared for her dad who's in really bad shape. He tells this lady by the name of Miss Tsai that he wants to go home. And obviously he's not well enough to go home. And this lady Miss Tsai is going to come up a lot in this movie, so bear with me. And apparently after that, those were his last words because he passed away right then and there. At the viewing, Lynn is there with her daughter. All the daughters coming to help grieve. And Mom really doesn't have a whole lot of nice things to say because apparently she hasn't talked to this man in 20 years. Later on, they gather around at one of their favorite restaurants. And a couple of the uncles really don't have a whole lot of nice things to say either. Alright, so now I'm curious. I'm like, what the fuck did he do when he was alive? The dancing instructor daughter runs into a guy that she hasn't seen in about 20 years. What is with all these wide gaps between significant others? This shit is crazy. Regardless, they all gather around to eat, and it's her birthday dinner on top of that, so Lynn about to get crunk. See her get the drinks on. Then she gets on stage and starts doing karaoke. And the lyrics aren't really a heartwarming romantic song either, so it's like, hilarious. So afterwards, she goes to the hospital with her niece and she tells her, "Don't tell your mom and dad we came up here." She found out Miss Tsai was actually the one taking care of the dad, and she basically wanted to get her address and phone number. I didn't think that was legal to do, but considering that was her husband, I guess it's okay. So when they get back home, she asks us, what was dad like? And she's got that look like she really doesn't want to tell the story. And then we get a flashback. Now, if you're watching the movie, the transitions and the flashbacks move ridiculously quick, so you have to pay full-fledged attention when you're watching the movie. Now, this is Lynn and her husband when they were younger. She was working outside as a waiter. He wants her to sign divorce papers because he can't stay there. They live in Tainan, but he's trying to move all the way to Singapore. But she doesn't want him to leave, and she never signs the divorce papers. But he says he was forced to leave, and he says goodbye to his daughter one last time before he goes. The next day, they go to a church so they can pick out what kind of casket. And the uncle comes up like, "Why are you going so far out the way for him?" She goes to talk to her other daughter about the situation. Then we go to the dance instructor daughter. She's back at the hospital for whatever reason. She ends up running into her best friend again, who she ends up bringing to the viewing service. As they gather around, the niece asks, like, why did dad always used to wear sunglasses? To which Lynn replies, she caught him with another chick as he was jumping out the window and something happened on the way down when he was landing and messed up his eyes. And from there it goes into the immediate flashback. The daughters when they were young, and Lynn. There you go. She chased him out the window with a butcher knife. But do you know what she's looking at right there? No, it was just some random ass chick. Yeah, his dad was getting around. The crazy thing was she still paid for the hotel that he was staying in. Back in present day, the daughter's calling somebody who just happened to be enchanters. To send peace to the spirits that have been passed on and stuff like that. So mom's like, all right, I'm going to just call, quote unquote, the master to approach. So who the heck is the master? But no, that's just some guy that participates in the celebration of his life. After that, Mom links up with her niece again, and they headed over to Miss Tsai's house. And it turns out this girl answered the door, who happens to be the daughter that Miss Tsai had with her husband. She didn't know who she was at first until she offered him in for a drink. She tells her Miss Tsai's not here right now, so she basically just leaves after that. Back at the viewing, some of the uncles show up, but they're still pissed off about the whole thing. So I'm thinking to myself, why do the uncles hate this man? Back at the hospital, we learned why she was feeling around her chest earlier. Apparently, she had cancer before, and she beat it, but she gets a diagnosis back that tells her that the cancer came back. She wants to keep it a secret from the family at this point because they're dealing with dad and all that other stuff. And quite honestly, I don't even think she even wants to bother with the chemotherapy and stuff. It's like you could tell she's thinking to herself, like, why even bother? You know what I'm saying? And they never distinguish a time frame of when she beat it to the time it surfaced again. Back at the viewing, the enchanters did their job and now they're about to dip out. Later on, one of the daughters goes on a walk and takes a walk with Miss Tsai. Yep, that's her. And she starts telling her stories that she didn't know about her dad, like he was a policeman for a while. And they were living out this building, and he only did it for 3 years. And they said, well, why did he stop doing it for 3 years? And she told her that, well, it wasn't really up to him. And then Miss Sai gives her a gift that her dad left behind. I'm guessing some type of sweetbread she used to eat when she was a kid. Back at home, it's troubles. They talking about divorce and all this stuff. But they're working it out for their daughter because they want to send her to the United States so she can get a good education there. But the daughter doesn't want to go to the States. She wants to stay there with their parents. You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, she tells her friend that her cancer came back. Mom starts making food for the family to come by. Just for the family to tell them that she's using expired food. It's like... Then Mom's in the room with her niece and she starts going through some of her husband's old trinkets. She shows her pictures, love letters, stuff like that. You got the couple going through younger pictures of themselves, rekindle no flames and stuff like that. Their daughter's still stubborn about going to the United States. They want to stay there. She wants to stay there. The other sister finally comes home. She hugs her other sister and tells her how many boyfriends and girlfriends she's been with. But it's really just to take her mind off of the cancer. Then while everybody's gone, Miss Sai actually shows up to the viewing. You can tell it's her first time being there since everything went down. Then the next day, Mom gets a surprise visitor. It's May, who shows up all the way from Singapore. And on top of that, she has a husband, she's got a baby on the way, and her career's off the charts. See, May is actually the third sister they don't know about. Because when it looked like Dad was leaving back then, he actually took her to Singapore. Yeah. The crazy thing about all that shit is, Lynn was the one to agree to it. Yeah. So the middle daughter goes back to get some more tests done. And you can tell in her heart, she's basically, fuck the chemo, I'm gonna just ride the shit out. And they tell her that she only got about 5 more years to live on the chemo. So as she's embracing her friend, who's this guy in the blue suit? Yeah, this guy. Alright, so remember when she sent divorce papers in the mail earlier in the movie? That's the guy who she was sending them to. And they basically air it out. She's like, dude, just let me go. I done cheated on you so many times. Not only has she been cheating on him, but they haven't seen each other in 3 years. It's like, just sign the divorce papers already. Why are you still hanging on to her, dude? Come on. But honestly, it's kind of a theme with this movie. So they took it outside to talk. He's like, man, I'm not signing this shit. Then as he leaves off, a friend comes up and then they start talking. And she's like, man, I'm too much for you, but you can still have me though. Then the next day, Miss Sai actually comes through with her daughter and her friends. It's like, wow. She pays her respects and all that. And they all sit down and make origami stuff. It gets awkward after a while, then they decide to leave. But before she goes, there's this awkward silence. It's like Lynn wants to ask her something, but we never figure out what yet. Alright, now I'm about to throw a lot of information at y'all. So we get to this scene where it's Mom and all the daughters, and they blurt out the fact that her sister's cancer came back. We find out why the uncles are mad because he made bets with the meat market stamps and stuff like that, but he was never able to recoup the money. And so he was always begging for money and messing with scandalous women and stuff like that. So yeah, it was that's the reason why the uncles was always pissed off at him. She really wants her daughter to do the chemo, but she's just like, man, why bother? It just keeps coming back. And she's like, I don't want to be on that shit for 5 years and then just die, you know what I'm saying? Might as well just live my life. It was a lot more said than that, but you get the point. So next morning, Mom goes to a temple to pray when she spots Miss Sai at the same temple. Miss Sai tells him the reason why he couldn't come back to Taipan was because of Lynn's father. But he ended up coming back years later before his health started failing. A lot of other things were said in between that, but then she got a new perspective of Miss Sai for her. Then they give us a real quick flashback about her when her dad died. And this was the first time in the movie where she officially just broke down in tears and just started hollering. I mean, it all hit her like a ton of bricks. So here's some more craziness. So the older family members have been mad about the dad for years about this money stamp or whatever like that. Turns out it was Lynn that's actually the one that had it, and she was trying to flip stuff. Turns out she was successful at it and gave her daughters each separate piles of gold. She tells her daughter someday she'll be gone, find somebody to share your life with, you know what I'm saying, get the business popping. Alright, so when all three of them are in a room, that's when the dancing daughter tells the other ones that Mel is actually their third sister. They didn't really know when they were in the viewing. Yeah, she basically just broke it down to her right then and there. And then they just share some sweets after that. And then we get another flashback of Lynn and her 2 girls. And then Dad pops up into the frame. Next day, Mom's checking on her daughter to make sure she's okay. I just get that feeling she's not going to go through chemo. She's just going to say, fuck it, After that, Mom goes back upstairs. And she signs the divorce papers that she didn't sign 20 years ago. Yeah, she still had it. Yeah, the culture does not believe in divorce for real. You know what I'm saying? You got problems, you don't get divorced. You just work that shit out. Well, anyway, she put it back in a box of memoirs, and they told her when they buried Dad to cremate all of that, too. And it's just like a moment of reflection. I guess she was just able to let it all go. Everybody's attending the funeral, and they're like, oh, okay, where's Mom? But then Miss Sai actually shows up in the front. I'm like, oh, shit. Mom's still driving around in the car. She starts singing karaoke in the car, and she feels like she's singing with her husband in the car, you know what I'm saying? I guess that's a better shot of him. So I'm like, wait a minute, what the fuck? She's just not gonna go to the funeral? Really? But then after a couple of the credits roll, she waits till everybody's gone and then she finally approaches the casket. So technically she was there, she just didn't go with everybody else being there. She wanted to be there by herself with them. Alright. Big Little Women on Netflix. Check it out. Like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. Slick DZ, all DZ, best style. Big kitty goddamn slogan.